The date is November 15th, 1983. The air inside the Agricultural Hall in Allentown, Pennsylvania, is thick with the scent of sweat and that indescribable electric anticipation that only professional wrestling can generate. This isn't Madison Square Garden, but tonight this unassuming hall is the epicenter of the World Wrestling Federation. In the ring, two men, one stocky and powerful, the other sculpted like a Greek god, have just accomplished something that seemed impossible in the racially charged atmosphere of early 1980s professional wrestling. Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, known collectively as the Soul Patrol, have defeated the savage wild Samoans to become the first black champions in the company's history. The moment is seismic and transcendent, a breakthrough that should have launched Atlas into the stratosphere of sports entertainment stardom. Atlas raises the gold belt high above his head, his perfectly chiseled physique gleaming under the harsh arena lights. The crowd's roar is deafening. This is his moment, the culmination of 9 years of grinding through territories, perfecting his craft, building a reputation as one of the most physically imposing specimens the wrestling world had ever seen. Known as Mr. USA and the Black Superman, Atlas possessed a combination of raw power and aesthetic beauty that seemed destined for main event glory. Vince McMahon himself had reportedly earmarked him for an Intercontinental Championship run, recognizing that this mountain of muscle could be molded into something special and historic. Yet within 7 years, this same man would be sleeping on park benches, digging through Burger King dumpsters for food, his once magnificent physique withered by homelessness and desperation. And when he finally crawled back to the Federation in 1990, begging for another chance, Vince McMahon would hand him perhaps the most humiliating gimmick in wrestling history, transforming the former Black Superman into a cartoonish African warrior that felt more like cultural mockery than character development. How does a man fall so far? How does someone who made wrestling history become wrestling's punchline? The story of Tony Atlas is one of breathtaking highs and soul-crushing lows, of squandered potential and the devastating consequences of personal demons. It's a tale that reveals the brutal machinery behind the glitz and glamour of professional wrestling, where dreams are manufactured and destroyed with equal efficiency. Born Anthony White in 1954 in Roanoke, Virginia, his initial destiny wasn't the wrestling ring, but the realm of pure power. A regular at his local recreation center, White developed a physique that was nothing short of extraordinary, catching the eye of professional wrestlers like Sandy Scott. He transitioned into competitive powerlifting and bodybuilding, demonstrating a Herculean strength that would define his early career. His raw power led him to an impressive bench press of 540 pounds, and in 1979, he captured the Pro Mr. USA bodybuilding title, a moniker he would carry into the wrestling world, elevating his identity to that of a genuine strongman. His professional wrestling journey began in 1974, primarily in the National Wrestling Alliance territories. Here he honed his craft, working with legends and future legends alike. He tasted tag team success, notably with Tommy Rich capturing the Georgia Tag Team title. He was a sought-after partner for his undeniable strength and charisma, working alongside wrestling royalty such as Dick Murdoch, Thunderbolt Patterson, and of course the man who would be his key partner in the biggest run of his career, Rocky Johnson. His first foray into the World Wrestling Federation began in October 1979. In a rapidly changing industry, where presentation was becoming as important as performance, Tony Atlas's incredible physique was an instant draw. He was the perfect, legitimate athlete for the emerging body-conscious era of wrestling. In 1981, within Madison Square Garden, Atlas achieved one of his earliest, most forgotten feats of strength. He became the first person to truly press, slam, and pin Hulk Hogan, albeit with Hogan's foot on the rope and the referee not seeing it, a subtle nod to his pure, unadulterated power even before the Federation machine began to roll. His early feuds were often centered on physical prowess, most notably a memorable confrontation with the bombastic Jesse the Body Ventura over who possessed the superior physique. This initial Federation run, culminating in that historic Tag Team Championship win with Rocky Johnson in 1983, represented his absolute peak. The Soul Patrol was more than just a tag team. They were a symbol, breaking a barrier and earning the respect of a national audience. The pop, the recognition, the clear path to singles stardom, it was all there. He was booked strongly, a veritable force of nature, a talent that Vince McMahon saw as an integral part of his expanding empire. Atlas was even poised for a pivotal Intercontinental Championship run. It would have catapulted him into the rarefied air of main event talent, setting him up for a career of wealth and recognition. But this trajectory was catastrophically interrupted. While backstage altercations with Johnson led to the team's dissolution and the loss of the belts, the internal battle Tony Atlas was fighting with addiction was the true career killer. His struggle with drug use became too severe to ignore, leading to an increasing number of missed shows. In the unforgiving, tight-knit world of wrestling, unreliability, especially at a time when the Federation was rapidly nationalizing and needed its top stars to be dependable, was a fatal flaw. His final match in this initial run came in May 1984, and the door to his promised future was abruptly slammed shut. He would attempt to rebuild his career in the few remaining viable territories. He joined the American Wrestling Association, a brief but strongly booked stint where he was presented as a legitimate top star, trading wins with names like Larry Zbyszko and even challenging the Road Warriors. His return to the Federation later in 1984, however, marked a dramatic downshift in his standing. The trust was gone. He was still a powerful mid-carder, going undefeated against lower-tier talent, but his momentum was irrevocably damaged. He was now used to elevate others. He appeared in the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal in 1986, where he was eliminated by William the Refrigerator Perry, and was increasingly utilized as a jobber to the stars, putting over rising talents like King Kong Bundy and Harley Race. His athletic prowess was even mocked in a notorious, poorly executed strongman match with Ted Arcidi at the Boston Garden, where the crowd booed both men, a painful indicator of how far his star had fallen in the eyes of the fans and the company's commentary team. By September 1986, he was essentially phased out. His career then took him to world-class championship wrestling in Texas, where he briefly found success as the Black Superman, winning the World Television Championship and the Texas Tag Team title. But the personal turmoil was catching up to him. His experience in 1988, in Puerto Rico's World Wrestling Council, was a different kind of horror, where he was a key witness to the fatal locker room stabbing of Bruiser Brody by Jose Gonzalez. Atlas's first-hand account of the gruesome incident and the ensuing fear he felt that his own life was in danger added a layer of profound trauma to his already fracturing existence. The financial and personal decay continued until 1990, when the champion, the Hall of Fame-level athlete, found himself on the street. Divorce, legal fees, and the crushing weight of his untreated addiction had left him with nothing. His body weight plummeted. The world-class physique was a withered shadow of its former glory. It was an appalling decline, a stark reminder of how quickly the glory of professional wrestling can vanish. It was during this desperate, life-threatening period that a complete stranger's act of generosity, followed by the encouragement of a local police officer who recognized him, spurred Atlas to make a call to Vince McMahon. McMahon, showing a surprising degree of charity and a business acumen for a potential inexpensive return, offered him a way back. But the price of re-entry was the Saba Simba gimmick. His return in 1990 was not a triumphant homecoming for the Black Superman, but the debut of a character that, while providing him a paycheck and salvation from the streets, was undeniably a regressive, embarrassing caricature. He was repackaged as a generic African warrior from a Ugandan tribe. Even as his history as a champion was briefly acknowledged, the company, in the spirit of the era's cartoonish over-gimmicking, quickly pushed the Saba Simba character, claiming Atlas had rediscovered his roots and legally changed his name. This gimmick was widely and justly criticized as culturally insensitive and, at worst, outright racist. The man who broke the color barrier in 1983 was now reduced to a one-dimensional trope in 1990. Atlas has publicly stated that the Saba Simba gimmick, however demeaning, saved his life, pulling him off a park bench and giving him the stability to rebuild. He appeared in the 1991 Royal Rumble, but was quickly relegated to jobber status and taken off television shortly after, his run as Saba Simba ending in September 1991. The irony is excruciating. The joke gimmick, created out of a desperate need to find a place for a fallen star, saved his life. but it also became a permanent scar on the legacy of the pioneer. Following his third Federation departure, Atlas was essentially adrift in the independent circuit and had a brief, unremarkable run in World Championship Wrestling in 1992, where he worked as a heel with the Barbarian. This period further confirmed that his time as a top-tier, credible singles star was over. It would take over a decade and a transformation in the industry for Tony Atlas to finally receive his due. In 2006, he was rightly inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by S.D. Jones, an acknowledgement of his historic role. This honor finally began the slow process of separating his legacy from the shame of Saba Simba. His return to WWE in a more consistent capacity came in 2008 as a heel manager on the revived ECW brand, aligning himself with Mark Henry. This role, where he was allowed to be an eccentric, humorous, and sometimes menacing personality, suited him perfectly. He was no longer expected to be the chiseled, world-beating wrestler of his prime, but a respected veteran who could lend credibility to a rising star. He helped guide Mark Henry to success, and even wrestled in a few surprising matches, demonstrating that the passion for the business had never left him. The story of Tony Atlas is not just a wrestling story, it is a profound and moving tragedy of unfulfilled potential and hard-won redemption. He was an athlete of rare power, a man who, alongside Rocky Johnson, cracked the ceiling of the World Wrestling Federation, only to be utterly derailed by addiction. He paid the highest price imaginable for his demons, losing everything, only to be given a second chance that came with the cost of his dignity. A chance he thankfully embraced. He was the Black Superman who flew too high, crashed too hard, and was only brought back to earth as a punchline. His story is a powerful cautionary epic, a reminder that in the arena of life, as in the wrestling ring, your greatest opponent is often yourself. Yet, through all the pain and humiliation Tony Atlas endured, emerging as a survivor whose ultimate legacy is not just the gold he won, but the history he made.